Welcome to WorldWire. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The North American auto industry is undergoing a seismic transformation. Japan's top automakers, Toyota, Honda, and Nissan, are pulling back from decades of U.S. investment, shifting their manufacturing meat to Canada. This isn't a minor tweak, it's a fundamental realignment of production and supply chains, with major consequences for American workers. Billions once destined for U.S. factories are now being rerouted north, as production lines for popular vehicles prepare to cross the border. The catalyst, a hostile U.S. business climate, driven by new protectionist trade policies. Canada, with its stable trade agreements and government incentives, is rolling out the red carpet for these companies. For years, Japanese automakers were pillars of local U.S. economies, but that partnership is fracturing. The story is no longer one of collaboration, but of a costly split, one that's just beginning to reshape the continent's economic map. The great northward migration has begun, and its full impact is only starting to be understood. The exodus traces directly to the White House and a renewed push for aggressive trade protectionism. In 2025, the Trump administration imposed a 25% tariff on Japanese vehicles and auto parts, upending the economics of US-based assembly plants. Even after a partial rollback, tariffs on components remained, turning American operations into financial liabilities for companies like Toyota and Honda. In the first quarter of 2026, Toyota's North American profits plunged, with the region posting a net loss despite strong sales. The tariffs, meant to force production onshore, instead made it far cheaper to build cars elsewhere. Faced with mounting losses, Japanese automakers saw no choice but to move production to more cost-effective locations. Canada, with tariff-free access to the U.S. market and a stable policy environment, became the obvious safe harbor. The policy designed to protect American jobs is now driving them away. The economic logic is simple. If it costs more to build in the U.S., companies will build elsewhere. As the U.S. industrial base erodes, Canada is preparing for an economic boom. Toyota canceled a $1.2 billion expansion in Kentucky, redirecting the investment to Ontario. Honda is shifting production of its top-selling CR-V from Ohio to Canada, a major blow to U.S. manufacturing. These moves are part of a broader realignment, with thousands of jobs and billions in investment flowing north. Conservative estimates project 8,000 new manufacturing jobs in Canada, not counting the ripple effect on suppliers and local services. Ontario's automotive corridor is being revitalized, while U.S. communities face shrinking factories and lost opportunities. Nissan is also cutting its American workforce, joining the exodus. The very states meant to benefit from protectionist policies are now suffering the most. For Canada, it's validation of stable trade relationships. For the U.S., it's a sobering lesson in unintended consequences. The transfer of wealth and opportunity is stark and accelerating. The human cost of this industrial shift is devastating for communities in Kentucky, Ohio, and Tennessee. Plants that once provided stable middle-class jobs are now sources of anxiety and fear. For every assembly line job lost, several more in local supply chains are threatened. The economic ecosystem built over decades is at risk of collapse, hollowing out entire towns. Workers who once took pride in building world-class vehicles now face unemployment and uncertainty. The sense of betrayal is palpable. Many feel they're paying the price for a trade war they never wanted. Anger is mounting, directed at both departing companies and the government policies that triggered the crisis. The promise of bringing jobs back to America is clashing with the reality of watching them leave for Canada. The fallout is creating deep scars in the industrial heartland, turning hopes of a manufacturing renaissance into fears of deindustrialization. The automaker exodus has sparked political outrage in Washington and regret in Tokyo. U.S. officials, aiming to boost domestic manufacturing, now watch as jobs and investment flee the country. Some accuse Japanese companies of betrayal, but the reality is more complex. These are rational business decisions in response to punitive policies. Japan's government has expressed deep regret, defending the automakers' moves as necessary for survival. Industry associations warn that the tariffs are harming the entire North American auto sector, not just foreign firms. Even U.S. automakers like Ford are suffering, with supply chain disruptions costing billions. The tariffs intended to help are inflicting collateral damage across the industry. The diplomatic fallout reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of today's globalized economy. The result, a fractured alliance and a weakened auto sector on both sides of the Pacific. The consequences are rippling, far beyond boardrooms and assembly lines. This crisis overshadows the deep, decades-long relationship between Japanese automakers and the US. Japanese firms have invested billions, building dozens of plants and employing over 100,000 American workers. In 2024-25, Toyota alone built nearly 2 million vehicles in the US, a scale rivaling domestic brands. These companies have fueled American innovation, spending billions on R&D and employing thousands of engineers. Their presence has been a model of foreign direct investment, benefiting local economies and advancing technology. The current exodus isn't a rash decision, it's the unwinding of a successful multi-decade partnership. Trade policies have put this legacy at risk, forcing companies to retreat from a market they once called a second home. The loss isn't just future investment, but the erosion of a mutually beneficial relationship. The departure marks the end of an era of integration and shared prosperity. What's at stake is more than jobs. It's the fabric of American manufacturing communities. As the dust settles, the future of the North American auto industry looks fractured and uncertain. Without a rapid policy reversal, the trend of disinvestment will likely continue, and may accelerate. Canada's automotive sector is poised to become a global powerhouse, while the US risks a slow hollowing out of its industrial base. American consumers could face higher prices and fewer choices as tariffs drive up costs and limit options. The effort to protect the US auto industry may ironically weaken it. Industry leaders and foreign governments are urging a return to collaborative trade policies. If the conflict escalates, North America's integrated market could splinter into competing zones, raising costs and reducing competitiveness. The alternative is a return to cooperation and stable trade, the foundation of decades of growth. For thousands of American workers, the hope is that common sense prevails before the damage becomes permanent. The choices made now will define the industry and the continent for years to come.